G'day everyone, stone the crows and starve the lizards. It's bloody Thursday already, and what have we done? I'm not sure. I have to recap the week. Welcome to you. It's good to have you on board for the last show of the week, and as usual, it's great to have Ash beside me. Well, not quite beside me, but in fact, how many kilometres between you and I right now, Ash?
How much?
A few thousand. I don't know how many though.
Yeah. I thought you said 2,000. I was thinking it was a little bit more than that.
No, I did that on the weekend, mate.
I'm gonna take a guess. I don't know how much the world is actually, but I'm gonna take a guess at 12,000.
Okay, I'll take a guess. I'll go a little bit higher. I'll go 15.
All right, I'm going to Google
it. Right, so you want Tasmania or Hobart to Brighton?
Oh,
when you put in Hobart to Brighton, you're going to get about 30 minutes because it's only about 20 k's.
30 minutes? What do you mean?
Yeah, there's a Brighton right near where I live. So
So
you have to put Brighton, UK.
Right, Hobart, Tasmania. Here we go. Right, directions. Oh. Obviously, I'm not doing it to your actual house.
Oh no! Don't tell anyone where I live.
But I'll do it from my house. Aeroplane.
Yeah, we'll get by plane.
It doesn't tell me how far it is actually.
Got to. Can't count that much.
We can't calculate the walking directions. It's calculating the aeroplane, but what if you can drive? No, I can't calculate it. Well, I'll have to. I was doing it on maps to see if I could get a really accurate.
Yeah, you'll probably just have to do a how long's the flight from wherever to wherever. All right, while you're doing that, while you're Googling that information that we just cannot do without.
10,821 miles.
Oh, miles. Okay, so 15,000 kilometres is not too far out.
No, I don't think. No, you're right. That's what I was thinking of. You see, miles.
Of course you were.
Oh, see, you go 17,000 kilometres.
Oh, okay. Bloody long way to walk. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, take a little while, won't it?
No wonder it took my fellow convicts such a long time to get here on the boat. My goodness.
Absolutely.
Okay, what do we got? BOJ today. And interestingly, there's a whole lot of bloody movement before it, but not much after it, as I saw the market anyway, certainly on dollar yen. Dollar yen took off during Euro session yesterday, as did the dollar pretty much all day yesterday, having a stellar day. Was the greenback, no question. But then when this MPS monetary policy statement came out, not a lot happened. And interestingly, I don't know if we've even had the press conference yet. I assume we have, but let me see if there's any detail on that actually. Expect it was 33 hours ago. I don't see any signs that it has taken place. That's interesting. Though you would have thought it would have, if it was going to happen, it would have happened. You would have thought only an hour or a couple of hours after the statement was given, but don't know. In effect, I didn't see too much. Movement after the announcement was made, so that's kind of interesting. And it was expected to be a bit of a deal breaker. And I think from what I read of the statement, nothing really happened. They're happy to remain accommodative with their monetary policy, and short and long-term interest rates remain as are at negative and zero respectively. So I don't know if you got anything more out of that, Ash, out of the BOJ?
I didn't, but you know, I did think it was quite interesting that in a way that the fact that we're pretty much back to where we were after that, it seemed that it was a fairly highly telegraphed announcement and statement. You know, that they haven't done anything hugely surprising. As we said, we've been saying for the last couple of days that the yen does kind of like have a seasonal bias to start strengthening throughout May. And I thought it was quite telling that it's managed to hold ground even after that statement. That would suggest to me that that we could well be on for a strengthening yen throughout May, because that may be one statement. That would have been one statement that could have weakened, helped weaken the yen, but it hasn't done that.
It didn't. No.
And this is where trading gets quite interesting, where you do kind of look at fundamental, or I do anyway. I look at the fundamentals and have a look at what could be driving the market. But sometimes you look at the fundamentals and think, well, that hasn't driven the market in the direction of the fundamental statement, so that would suggest the opposite direction.
It certainly does. I pay particular attention to that, actually, when that happens.
Yes,
I think that's a very strong signal.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when we look at the FTSE later on, then we'll see how that is manifesting itself in the markets as well.
Okie dokie. I don't have any trades in the market, mate. I closed my Aussie yen yesterday. I got, what else was I in?
Pound yen? Oh no, the pound yen was the upside one, wasn't it?
Yeah, pound yen didn't trigger, did it? Nothing else. I've got one order in the market. I'll show you that. It is euro pound, interestingly enough, based on really a double top sitting here, false break of the trend line, and potential false break of the range that we were previously. And I'll go to the daily chart just to make that perfectly clear to you. So false break here, potential false break here, but it hasn't quite converted yet. And I did say this morning when I took this trade in the morning show that it may be a little bit early, but it's one of my just in case trades. Really what I wanted to see was price hit these pivots and then give me something of a reversal bar here, high test bar, something like that, and effectively a lower high, of course, at that level. And I think that would probably be the best place to get in here, if there is to be a good place to get in here, if indeed we are going short. I can also see a strong case for the bulls. Now that, pardon me, when I say strong case, I can see a case for the bulls. It's not strong. Let me erase that previous statement. The case being that we've come off the bottom of this range. And the interesting part, of course, is where these candles close. I'm on a weekly chart, and we have had closes above that range, which is why there's potential here for this to break out to the high side. So I see that. I totally get that. But whilst ever we are back inside this range, I think I'm happy to trade this short, in particular down to the monthly pivot. And beyond, if we get lucky, we can take on these lows. So I can see a case against me, but I think the case for me is equally strong, well, in fact, stronger. So that's why I'm willing to take that trade. Again, going back to what I said before, there may well be a better entry here, and we'll just keep monitoring that. And if there is, I'll certainly move my entry back up to where that is appropriate. That really is the only thing I've got on my agenda, mate. In terms of fundamentally, I'm going to get your opinion on that. And I think, most people are now bearish the pound. But after yesterday and the sell-off of the euro, we find that the euro is in, as we said before, in the deep SH1Ts. So
yes,
I'm finding it very, very difficult to draw a line between the pair and say, well, okay, this one's weaker than the other. They're both at a level of, I'd call it medium level support. The euro at this level of support, the bottom of this range here that you can see was established back in May of 2017, and also the top of this range and this little resistance area here as well. So it's been both support and resistance, and that's important to me. So I can see there's potential here for a retracement. Don't know if I'd call it a bounce, but such is the strength of the dollar that you've been heralding for us, that I don't really see this as a buying prospect anytime soon. It needs to get back into there if I'm to start thinking bullish again. So I think the euro's in big trouble. If I put the pound up, on the same basis. Similarly, you know, it's at a weak level of support. In fact, I think this level's weaker than than is the euro. But that said, I think the euro in context has been on a downward tear, and the pound in context has not. So I'm not 100% committed to it, but I do see the signal there, and if the signal's there, you might as well just take it. As I always say, trade what you see, not what you think. But what do you think? Euro
Well,
pound on balance.
yeah, I mean, it's the pound's had some fairly interesting releases. Well, I should say the UK has had some fairly interesting releases overnight. We've had Theresa May back in October or November. That we know that there was a leadership challenge. Jacob Rees-Mogg put down the gauntlet, threw down the gauntlet, and put a leadership challenge. Or in fact, he put a no confidence vote in the Prime Minister. He laid the no confidence vote in the Prime Minister. It wasn't necessarily a leadership challenge, but it was a vote of no confidence, and the 1922 committee managed to get enough votes to put that through and put it to the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party voted that they did have confidence in the Prime Minister, and she remained. Now, since then, we've had twists and turns with Brexit, and also the fact that we've had the 29th of April pass, and the next date pass. I think it was 2 weeks after that. The next date passes. Sorry, not the 29th of April. Be the 29th of March. Might be getting my dates mixed up, but we know we should have had Brexit by now anyway, and now we go into the European elections potentially. So the confidence in the Prime Minister has diminished significantly, it's weakened significantly, and that is where we currently sit. You know, we're currently sitting on a PM who is a sitting duck, and they voted yesterday not to change the system of ousting their leader, because she survived for a year under that rule.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose that challenge, if you lose the vote no confidence challenge, then the Prime Minister can survive for a year without a new vote of no confidence coming in. And yesterday they voted not to change that rule. So they voted to see if they could change that rule, because they were looking to get rid of her, but they like the way things are left there, and they like the status quo on that. So they voted to leave that particular law in as mandate. So she's not really going anywhere on that, but the fact that they are trying to push for it, or there are some that are trying to push for it, shows that she has got very little support. But she does survive and live to survive another day. She's in continued talks with the Labour Party, and it seems that she might be softening on the customs union, which is one of their big red lines, is the customs union. Also overnight, Nicola Sturgeon, the leader of the Scottish National Party, has come out and said that they want a new referendum on Scotland being part of the UK to happen before, I think she said 2021, which is the end of the Scottish National Party's power in Scotland. Now, for that to go through, Westminster has to ratify. Westminster has to grant that as a permission. They can't just say, you know, you can have that particular vote. So that probably wouldn't move the market. But there are already kind of, that could be a significant development if that does actually start to take shape at all. Is she coming out and saying it because she's frustrated with the Brexit process and she's trying to jostle Theresa May a little bit more? Is she serious about the fact that she wants the vote to be given back to the Scottish people again? You know, they only voted on it a few years ago, so a little bit similar to the EU referendum, where Parliament are saying that was supposedly a vote that would have lasted a lifetime, at least a decade before it would be allowed to be put back to the Scottish people. And it's the same with the EU vote. So they're saying that they need to respect the result of the referendum. So it doesn't look like Parliament will move on that, but there is pressure coming. Now, we've also had some political disharmony over in Ireland. A young girl was killed quite recently, a 29-year-old. Yeah, well, do you know? Yeah, this is the thing. The Good Friday Agreement is starting to be put under pressure, And one of the things about the EU is the Good Friday Agreement. That's one of the reasons that that they don't want this hard border going up through Ireland. But this seems like an innocuous thing, but actually it's really quite pivotal, because the reason that has emerged as the great sticking point for Brexit is Ireland. And if we start to see that there is, further movement over there, and the terrorists start to rear their ugly head again, then it's just, really starting to show how dangerous and how arbitrary this Brexit process has become. It just seems completely pointless. And now with this kind of thing, it just really does bring it to light that things are still pretty fragile in that part of the world, and that part of the country. So they are now having to get back around the table about to discuss the Good Friday Agreement. So there's quite a lot, really, mate. There's quite a lot overnight that's happened. None of it substantial, and none of it that would move the pound. But they're those things that are the small kind of working parts, the turning cogs, that may actually start to penetrate into a wider picture and a wider decision. Quite similar, if you like, to the small points of economic data that we get, and how they manage to form the bigger picture of whether an interest rate rise is going to happen. And they don't just pluck an interest rate rise or fall out of the air. They use the small parts of the economic data to formulate the plan. Obviously, there's the big guns that are in there, like CPI and average earnings, but even things like the EFO climate that we saw yesterday plays a part. And it's that kind of thing that's happening right now in the UK. I don't know where this leads us, and I don't know what it's saying, but it's certainly saying that that Brexit is starting to maybe move into a slightly darker territory. Whereas before it was very political and it was all about whether Theresa May could get a deal. Now we're maybe starting to see some of the results of the referendum vote, which have been which had been predicted. Maybe not the Irish situation, but some of these other things have been predicted. Certainly, a lot of companies are moving, some of them to Ireland, actually. So some of the sectors are starting to weaken, but disharmony in Ireland, a fresh call for Scottish referendum, the Conservative Party in turmoil, the Labour Party in turmoil. So all these things were kind of predicted, and they've all been just quietly bubbling along in the background. But I'm wondering whether we might just start to see some triggers that could bring these things a little bit more into sight, and that kind of thing would move the pound. But right now, it's not the kind of thing that would move the pound. So back to maybe what would. I think some clarity. And without that clarity, that would suggest to me that the pound will probably remain weak. When I look at this, when I look at the chart on the pound, that suggests that we probably would not just break through this point, without question, but we could well get down and trade to it. We could trade down to this point down here. I don't know if my chart's up. Let me just make sure.
The weekly chart shows a fair bit of support where we are. That chart right there. Don't know if that's going to be enough to turn it around, though.
Yeah. I know. I'd go with that, mate. I'd go with that. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and it would suggest, it could be that point, or it could just be that little bit lower and still qualify because of these points over here with the weekly chart, and this point here and this point here. That's a really strong line. So it could trade all the way down to 127.75, which is another 150 pip dip, and then just start to pick up again. But I'd be surprised if we start to really, break down beyond that point at this stage because of the lack of clarity.
Yeah, it's difficult to be confident that it's going to rally right now. That's for sure. I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't see a rally.
Same could be said of the euro. So it's kind of a race to the bottom right now. Which one's going to hold up? And
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And actually, yeah, the euro did collapse somewhat because of the EFO, didn't it? I mean, that was the thing. We've had the really, really stellar results out of the United States, which has really boosted that dollar. And the euro, and it keeps on coming. Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be abating at all. And the euro, this has broken down the level now, isn't it? The euro has been one currency which has not benefited from those numbers at all. It's not quite down there yet. It's just about qualifies to cling on, and it just about qualifies as a buy zone. But it gives this area up, and it would be, you'd think, right the way down to
bye Euro time.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, I'm not quite prepared to call it yet, but I'm not far off it. Pony Shandy away, I think.
Yeah, and well, I mean that line might play a part actually as well. Yeah, you know what? I think I would call that area there as the last giveaway point.
We're still in that channel, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I think the euro could weaken from this point and still qualify. That's the area there, but and so that does leave it a little bit lower and still be in a buy zone. Measured move on that does see us back to the lows though. So so if it does break down, then you think that this area here would probably be the area that people will be targeting.
Interesting times, I'd have to say, and like I said, I'm not committed in any way, shape, or form to that as an fait accompli this euro pound, but I'm simply trading my strategy at the end of the day. I'm trading
Yeah.
back inside the range, and we've had a retest of the pivots, and bang, it's as simple as that. So if that works, happy days. Fundamentals may play their part, but goodness knows how. I've got no idea what's on the horizon, to be fair. And as I say, it may well be a race to the bottom with that pair. The others, I suppose, that are interesting, we should have a look at the Aussie. The Aussie is definitely at a support level. Not the support level I was hoping it would be. I was hoping it would be at this monthly pivot level, as it was yesterday, before the sell-off. And I was looking for a long here. Yeah, right. That happened. Fortunately, there was no setup, of course, and I didn't even get a shoe in to trade it. I was looking at one there this morning. I can't remember which one it is, where I thought, thank goodness I wasn't in front of the charts at that time, because it would have crashed and burned. I'll try and find it for you. I don't think it's on any of these bigger time frames. That may be the issue. Another one I was interested in this morning was Euro Aussie. And I was wanting this candle here to be bullish and decisive. As you can see, that was not the case, nor it wasn't decisive, nor was it bullish. It's still of a little bit of interest to me. I'm kind of interested in the short underneath that bar, but I think there may be a better entry if indeed I can foresee one at the moment. The answer is no, but maybe on the smaller time frames I can. Maybe something through there as a false break. That's kind of where I might be headed a little bit later. But really, I didn't have much interest at all in the market this morning. The only thing was Euro Pound, because it sat there. Euro Yen needed. I suppose you could think about a short here, and I said this morning as well. You could think about it, but then you think about what's underneath you, and it's this support line here, which, as I say before, has been both support here and resistance here. And when I've got a trend line or a horizontal level that is that strong, it's very, very difficult to trade into it. Yes, I see the break. Yes, I see the retest, and it may well go, but it will just have to go without me, I'm afraid, at this point. I think it's probably a good fundamental position to be taking, but I also see that we've had phase one, phase two, no real retracement of this reversal. So support level, don't think I'm too keen to go short right now. I think I'd rather see a nice, gentle pullback, maybe to here, maybe to this area here, where we've got confluence with the monthly pivot. I know we've been through the monthly pivot and retested it, but I think this is maybe the go. We haven't tested the trend line, and the trend line is probably where I'm looking right now. Am I willing to trade it there? No, I don't think so. Not on this evidence anyway. Certainly not. The Aussie yen trade that we got out of yesterday, we got out at that red line. I'm more than comfortable with that decision. Without retracement here, I wouldn't like to get back into it. With retracement, I would. but no, not just yet. Dollar yen's the one. Took off, absolutely took off, and blasted out of the top of this range here, as I suggested it would, based on what I saw here, 3 false breakouts to the short side. That always gives me the indication that we're going to blast through the top here. Certainly did that, but it wasn't to hold. And as you can see now, coming straight back through there, and for whatever reason, the yen is outstripping the dollar today and doing it easily. And it looks like there are, now we've just opened the London session. It looks like there may well be some sellers around for dollar yen. I don't know if that's not profit taking. That's a move, and I'm not sure why, given I guess the bland, I'd call it, BOJ statement. Maybe we're in the press conference now. I don't know, because it was tentative. Maybe that's what's moving the market right now. I have no idea. The others going with it. Pound yen's holding. Euro yen is just holding. Where's Aussie yen? Back there, we just looked at it, didn't we? Still holding. So, I don't know. Dollar yen, very interesting. What are your thoughts, Ash?
Well, I'm actually just looking at the market. Looking at the FTSE 100. So have a quick look at this, mate. And I wanted to come to the FTSE 100 because the FTSE did actually take a little bit of a dive yesterday. It's managed to retrace, and it is on its way again to the downside right now. So I am looking at a pattern here which would suggest to me that we may now be starting our move. And this will probably link into dollar yen.
Yep.
So we'll come to the dollar yen. Measured move down here would be taking us down to around about the 320 level. So that looks like the break there. Now that leads us down to these lows down here. So it looks to me like we might finally be getting this profit taking coming into play here, mate. Finally.
How far do you need it to go?
Well, I mean, realistically, this is the buy area really down here.
Yeah.
The measured move on this particular pattern doesn't lead us down there. Unfortunately, that's going to be quite shy of that point. That's going to be still another. Let's just double check that. No, actually, that doesn't lead me there. It leads me along this line here, which is it would have to come down at another double. This is the buy zone here. Now we bring this into longer term timeframes, and it will explain why. But in saying that, this area here would certainly be a fairly obvious point to buy as well. This is the area that I would suspect we might see a bit of a bounce. Now, I don't know whether we're having an earnings release currently or not, but I know that we've had European banks reporting, and actually reporting fairly healthy as well. You know, they've come out and by all intents and purposes done pretty well over the course of the period. So with European banks reporting well and the FTSE 100 starting to drift to the downside, as I said, you know, and I've been going on for quite a while. We got that 10-day golden week in Japan, and that was always going to be a potential factor. But this is the thing with the FTSE. You know, it's had such a move to the upside. This may well be a shift shaft drop to the downside. We're 5 minutes in, and we are currently from the open. Let me just double check from the open. Is that freezing up? This is the opening bar here, which is around about 0.5% to the downside in the first 5 minutes, which is, I think, a fairly significant move.
Yeah, that's substantial.
In 15 minutes, the FTSE might have shaved 1% off its gains. So It looks like it's on its way, mate. So finally, it looks to me like we could get some opportunities. What we're going to need to see down here, though, and this is what I was talking about to you yesterday, that when the market was going to come down to this point, and I'm just going to bring in a little bit of detail here, because this was the weekly pivot down here that we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
And when the market came down here yesterday, and I was saying to you, I'm not sure whether I could justify buying it. Yes, there was a little boost to the upside, but I've had my suspicions about the market because of the overbought conditions as much as anything else, and how far and fast it's come. And the issue is always going to be, if it goes up at that pace, then watch out coming to the downside. The only thing with the downside, and this is my problem with the downside, is what's driving it. And if it's just profit taking, that is going to be very difficult to trade, because at that point you start to wonder where it goes to. And just coming back to a clean chart again, that would suggest if it's just a bit of profit taking going on, then the first level of support would probably hold. As
It's
people
been through, it's not really a trend line, it'd be a trade line more than a trend line, but it looks still broken and retested that from that chart you just had.
Yes, it does. Yes, you're absolutely right, mate. Yeah. There was a little trade line or trend line here. Where is it? There's one
You're
there.
kind of neckline-ish, isn't it?
Yeah, there was another one here as well that is now broken down. Bringing this back in as well.
Yeah, the one just above that, it would be the one I was talking about.
The one above. What, this one here? Or are you talking about this along here?
Yeah, no, the one you put in there. Yep.
Yeah. But there's a few along here. There's obviously going to be one here as well that will be watched. You can look at this level. This level does certainly look like it's probably most likely to hold up. But in saying that, would you really want to catch it if it's dropping with this kind of velocity? I know I'm not so keen.
No. Not for
so
me.
we're just going to wait out on this one and see what happens. But yeah, at least we start to get a little bit of relief now from the FTSE.
You sound like a happy man, mate.
I am, because this has been quite a frustrating run to the upside, and not being able to kind of grab onto it. But at least now we're sort of like starting to see whether there is a chance to get into this. The difficulty is going to be, and this is the other thing that I was saying yesterday, is the weekly chart. Because while the weekly bars are forming here, we can see that there's a slowdown. This bar gives us a hint, and there would have been many people that would have been quite happy to try and trade under that bar. This bar doesn't tell us too much, except for the velocity to the upside is starting to slow. But I think when we look at the weekly bar, we probably get a little bit more clarity on where those lines and levels actually survive and exist. I don't really like to call flags on weekly patterns, but this certainly would be a daily channel that you could look for. So that looks to me like, from the way that the weekly looks, that looks like it might well be the support line there, and that would bring in this line here. So is that line that I'm now saying is the bounce point? It has actually just slowed down. So if it goes through that bounce point, then I think we probably will get the opportunity that I really want, which is a little bit lower down here. I'm not that keen on that as a rising wedge. Let me just quickly tidy that up and see what that looks like. That looks like the line there. Something around there, I guess. The breakdown. Now the breakdown is going to give us our price. So if we can see this breakdown, then we're going to finally get the price that we want. But I just have to see whether my charts had frozen up there, because this has been stationary for a little while now. So let's see if that happens, mate. Let's see if that happens. But yeah, I am a lot more excited about it, because we need some downside. The weekly chart, the way it's starting to shape up, with this bar. I mean, we're into Thursday now, and Thursday would suggest that obviously we've got one more day to go. But if we get a bar like this, I will not be looking at the long. There's probably still some pushes to the upside, but I'm not going to be trading it. That's a pretty vicious looking move when we look at it on the weekly so far, and it's obviously a vicious move when we look at it on the. We haven't even passed 15 minutes yet, and look at the bar we're getting.
Yep.
And just to bring that into context, I can't see any other bar in this whole region here that looks like this.
All right. So you reckon this can actually lead dollar yen?
Okay, so yeah, back to dollar yen. Quite the opposite, actually. I am looking at the yen as the potential for the possible, safe haven run. Now in the market, we've seen dollar yen in the past be a point that people would put their money in the safe haven. But that is interesting, don't you think? That's quite fascinating. That it's almost in tandem with the FTSE 100, the way that that's moving. And I'm sure if we looked across the board, which we will do very, very quickly, the DAX futures are also weakening at this particular point, and that's it just doesn't look quite as significant. This is only a daily chart, but that's a solid looking bar. If I bring it into a 15-minute, then it starts to kind of like give us a little bit more detail with how enthusiastic the move currently is to the downside. We're going to look quickly at the Kakaron. Same kind of thing going on there. The Nikkei. Same kind of thing towards the end of the day. So what we're seeing is the reaction when the European markets are opening. So the reaction that we saw from the yen overnight wasn't that significant. It popped up and it popped back down again. But now the European markets are opened up. I think maybe some positions are being taken. We know that the Japanese holiday is coming up, so there probably will be a bit of a loosening in Japanese stocks. There's probably going to be sort of getting rid of some Japanese stocks. If Japanese stocks go, maybe they start to put their money into the yen instead. But I would suspect that this could actually be the start of something quite significant when we look at the markets. We might actually just about get that significant dip from here on in.
I'm just starting to think on this as a potential clean out. It may well be that, although I can't see why you'd be short either dollar yen or the FTSE. Maybe, I don't know. And by clean out, what I mean is there's plenty of, or there should be, if there were shorts in the market, plenty of liquidity where the market's just been yesterday, pretty much.
Yep.
And they're all going to be buy orders. So if you're a big seller, that's where you want to be. And that's exactly what looks to have happened here. Dollar yen, exactly the same. And that went very, very quickly. That's a classic sign.
Yes, it is. And you know what's interesting, mate, as well, is that while everybody's been bullish all these markets, then all it really needed was some motivation from some of the sellers. And all that's really happening is that we're just seeing loads of stops getting triggered, aren't we?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Dollar yen yesterday, just late, or it looks to be late in the US session. There's no reason why that would drive up there as rapidly as it did.
Yeah,
and that's a very strong sign.
I think so.
That someone's chasing liquidity.
I mean, something may be going on that we aren't a party to.
Sure.
I haven't got the news on in the background. All I know is that both of us have been saying that you have to be very careful with these markets because there's every chance that if it's going to turn around, it can happen very, very fast. And now I'm just going to double check what we have here on headlines. I'm just going to see if there is anything that we're just not a party to. UBS reports bumper profit and rakes in 22 billion, so that was good. Barclays chief says, nothing's doing. Nothing's doing, mate. I mean, Barclays had some pretty poor numbers, but everybody else has done pretty well. RBS starts hunt for new chief. No, no. There's no huge headline out there. I think it's just the market's triggering all these stops. Now, when we talk about buy levels, or when I talk about buy levels, yes, we are at one. This is a buy zone for sure. But what I don't want to see is a buy zone approached at this kind of velocity, because yeah, it can bounce, just as fast as it approaches it. But I want to see some carving out here. I want to see some bottoming out before I'm looking for that to move up. If this was in an uptrend and moving in a way that, well, let's say like this, this here becomes a buy zone. Along this point, we see some support here. The support gets broken down, so it becomes a sell zone. The support gets broken to the upside. The resistance gets broken to the upside, so it becomes a buy zone. But that's a lot more gentle. And actually, when it shoots through significantly. I would not want to play with this one, because at this stage, what we've got, people just waiting for it to retrace to this point before they sell it off. So yes, a bounce could happen. Bounce could happen up there and then start to turn around again. That's only 17 pips away. So if this closes down here in the next maybe 1 to 4 hours, let's say, then I think we could actually get something of a deeper retracement to the downside. I'd like to look for reasons why, but it might just simply be that the market is getting ready for a bit of a break, and they've had a great run, loads of profits been making on the way up, loads of profits been taken on the way up to this point up here, and they can just ease back some of their positions, get it down to the next potential area, and then look into maybe the first week in May, and then get back on the hobby horse again.
All right, mate. Sounds like a plan. I've just noticed something here that I need to rectify. In particular, if you're in the Telegram group, because I sent a signal out there earlier today on this order for euro pound. I've actually got my stop loss wrong, so I'm just going to change that. The entry is at 86.29. Those who didn't know that level before, that's what it is. So it's 86.29. But I had my stop loss at 21 pips. It should be 26 pips, which gets me well above the daily pivot, whereas before I was not. We won't have a target on this. Yes, we did have a target on this, 120 pips. TP1 was, as per default for this thing, 15 pips. I am going to get safe in the market quickly. So at 15 pips, I'm going to take a little bit better than half off, and I'm going to move my stops to a minus 15, which means that I'd be in a only win situation at that point. TP2, 45 pips. I'll leave that as is. We won't take anything off. We'll just move our stops to entry and the target's there. So that's a sell. Invalid stop loss. I think I made that 0.26. I just saw it. Let me try that again. 86.29 is right. Stop loss is not 0.26, but 26.0. And as I said, TP1 is good. That's all good. And TP2 is good. It's a sell. What? 91.68% risk. Probably not. What am I doing here? I love EAs. They completely confound me. Probably because I didn't click that. 0.8629.
We can't see your screen anyway, mate, but I don't know whether you want to see.
Yeah, well, yep. Oh, I've got the blue circle of death, mate. There's every chance I'm going to crash here.
Oh, right, okay.
I'll just continue doing what I'm doing and not try and do anything else. If you lose me, you know what's going on.
No problem.
Stop loss is 26 pips. So you can't see any of this going on, obviously.
Can't see any of it going on.
That's probably a good thing, because I'm completely completely stuffing it up. But I am at least voicing what I'm doing, so it's radio without pictures.
Yes.
TP1, 15 pips, closing 0.55 of the position at that point. Stop loss moves to 15 pips from entry. Correct. TP2 is 45 pips, move stops to entry, and close nothing. Right, everything is good. What's it doing? It's just ridiculous. Oh, okay. Risk is currently 45 grand. I don't want to put 45 grand on this. No. Let's get rid of that. Obviously, there's a problem with my with the way I'm using the EA, so I'm not going to do that. But I'll give you. Well, I've given you the parameters, so there's no need to do any more. I'll work that out in my own time rather than stuffing around. Am I still with you?
Yeah, you are, mate. Yeah.
Okay, I've got no control anymore. Everything's gone in terms of the control panel. So,
No problem.
You can see my screen?
Can't see your screen.
And you can't give it to me? And then that's interesting, mate. There's not a
Well, I
lot
mean, we've got your, you know, it's broadcasting from you, but we're not actually getting any screens now.
And still the blue circle of death rotates at a rate of about.
Well, you've got a bit of a public holiday there anyway,
50
haven't you?
RPM. Oh, I have indeed. It's Anzac Day here.
This Anzac Day there. I don't think if there's anything else anyone wants to talk about, let's talk about it. But otherwise, why don't we just shoot off and let you go and enjoy the public holiday, mate? We'll be back next week. I'm hoping that next week we may well start to see an area that we can buy into, liking the way that this market is coming. It's possible that that there's still some selling that we could continue to see here. So if anybody's interested in what direction to take right now, selling is the obvious option at 73.87. So that's currently 17 pips above where price is. So if price bounces up, look for some further selling. What may well happen is that we might start to see a reversal pattern here, where you know, we get some sort of neckline down at this point, somewhere around about the 73.40. Then a pop up, and then maybe a right shoulder is formed. So we could go into a little bit of fluctuation here. I'd question whether that's going to happen, just because of how fast we've moved to the upside. When prices move in such a fast fashion in one direction, the normality is that it does the same in the opposite direction. So this market could just completely be destroyed by the end of the day, and possibly into the start of next week. It might well be down here. It may well be beyond. I'd be surprised if it comes too far beyond. But this point may well actually get seen today. I mean, it's currently at 73.65. We opened at 74.22. So we've already hit the range, the average true range of the FTSE, which is around about 60 pips during the day right now. So we've already hit that that average true range.
Wow.
In 24 minutes, yeah, and this does suggest that that you know, people may well start to get very, very spooked here, and we might see the market down here without reply. As I say, I'm completely all right with that. I'm just waiting for this market to come back, let it come down here, rest a little bit, and then we'll see what we got.
Smells a bit like a clean out to me, mate. But
yeah,
that's all good if you're on the right side of it, and that's if you pick it up in the right place, as you've been wanting to do all week.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, I don't know if you can see my screen, but look at this point here. That this point is really is an attractive spot to pick it up, and I'll pick it up here without question. You know, I haven't got any other reason to doubt this rally. So you know, with that going on, I don't think that we're going to have a complete wash down, but I'd like to see it come down here and create something of a bottoming out, and then I'll look to pick it up, because I really like it here. I really like it down here. There's a horizontal level. You know, by the time it happens down here, we might even start to see some pivots as well.
So no thought of a limit buying and go to the pub?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't know what's happening until I heard the news. I'm gonna plug into the news when we finish the show here. I'm gonna plug in and see what's driving this. But until I've found out what's driving this, I won't be doing anything like putting any orders in the market. I really want to know why. And if it's just a bit of profit taking, then I'm cool with that. And maybe that's the point. I'll do it. But if it's something more sinister, then I don't want to be in the way of something which might sell off a lot more significantly.
Happy days. All right, mate. Yeah, I've got no control at all. I'm going to have to crash everything when we finish here, just so I can make sure the broadcast has concluded.
Okay,
and I'll
cool.
do that. It seems to be a
All
Google
right.
Chrome problem, and it happens often with Google
Yeah,
Chrome.
yeah. I find it. I find it with Google Chrome as well. It's not that stable in many respects.
No. All right, mate. Thank you for the week, and we'll look forward to catching up on Monday.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you all on Monday. Have a good weekend, buddy, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers, guys. Sorry about the early finish.